Here in Muka versus Muka, in this appeal, we have the appellant here. The appellee, there was no brief filed. It is now 11:30, that's when we were planning on starting. You will have 15 minutes to present your argument. The arguments are being recorded. When you present your argument, please introduce yourself, keep your voice up, and remain behind the podium. You should not use the names again of children, minors, and victims during your argument, and you can refer to them by terms like the child or initials. And we've read your brief and are prepared to proceed when you are.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Honors. Again, Kelly Torn for the appellant, Mr. Muka. The issues here in this case are addressing the judgment entry of divorce issued by the trial court on December 29th, 2022. The issues that are now before you on that issue are fourfold, really more so, but are fourfold as raised in the brief. The division of property associated with a finding of financial misconduct and a distributive award, the frivolous conduct findings by the trial court with the imposition of sanctions as a result, the trial court's calculation of the appellant's income for support purposes, and then on a less related note is the contempt findings, both regarding the appellee and the appellant. The first three assignments of errors, Your Honor, tie in together because so much of it was directed and based on Mr. Bober's quote-unquote expert testimony at the trial court. The division of property, the frivolous conduct finding, and the imposition of sanctions as a result all stem from this claim raised by Mr. Bober at the trial that the appellant somehow failed to disclose or turn over records and documentation. That claim was directly refuted by the appellant at the trial court, who testified that he gave all of the documents and information he had to appellee's expert, Mr. Bober. And then when it comes to Mr. Bober and the appellee, they couldn't tell you a single document that wasn't produced. The evidence and testimony presented to the trial court was that Mr. Muka, the appellant, is self-employed, he runs his own business, he doesn't have an accountant who manages his books, he does it all himself, mainly through QuickBooks. He operates through credit cards, personal and business accounts, QuickBooks, and cash out of pocket on the business as reported in his accounting. The appellant admitted at the trial court that his books weren't the best. He's not an accountant. He didn't know what he was doing. He did his best to try and keep track of his stock versus expenses versus income, but none of it was really identified correctly. It wasn't the best. It was messy.
Don't the numbers, though, not pass the smell test in terms of what you say the income is? Like there was a finding that they had $34,000 in income as a couple, but they're paying mortgage on you're able to pay these mortgages on a house. You're able to have a car. I mean, at some point, doesn't the court have to make a decision about, even if it's not right on the taxes or even if it's insertion, that there is a certain level of income?
Sure, and the trial court has that discretion. The issue is that the trial court relied almost exclusively on Mr. Bober's report. So at the trial court on September 8th and September 13th, Mr. Bober admitted that he didn't know what he was really relying on. He actually claimed that, I couldn't tell, it wasn't clear, so all I did is I took all of the deposits that the business and the appellant had and used that as income. I didn't deduct all of the business expenses. I arbitrarily picked certain expenses that I could deduct, but he wasn't sure exactly what they were, and then actually went on to say, well, there's really no way to know, so this is my best guess.
Well, so if there's never if you never get those documents, but there's more income here than is described, what's the court supposed to do with that? I mean, you would be rewarding someone who isn't giving you the deduction, the things you're deducting.
So I think that's the turn of the argument, Your Honor. The argument isn't that the documents weren't produced, because all of the documents were produced. The turn is, was the QuickBooks correct? Admittedly, no.
But did the expert opine that there must be more documents here? There must be more happening than documents show?
So no. So the expert said normally a business would have better bookkeeping. And the appellant testified on direct, probably I do it myself, this is the best I have, and now thanks to Mr. Bober and this trial, I'm realizing it's all wrong and I have to redo it. But for Mr. Bober to come in and say, I think there are records that exist, but I have no proof and I can't tell you what records exist, doesn't mean that somehow Mr. Muka or the appellant didn't comply with his discovery obligations. But the trial court took that notion that generally a business would have better bookkeeping and ran all the way with it and said that Mr. Muka concealed documents, concealed income, and concealed all of this information, all of which was turned over, and said, because of that, I'm going to accept this expert report for income purposes. The issue on that is that under the evidence rules and under Dauber and this court's opinion in Ellis, the trial court can't accept an expert opinion that is admittedly guesswork at best, because that's not a scientific methodology. If the trial court was simply going to accept that every deposit that was listed in QuickBooks is all income with no deductions or selecting arbitrary deductions, the trial court can do that. You don't need an expert to do that. All you need is a graphic calculator, not even a graphic calculator, all you need is a calculator and maybe Excel to keep track. That's not an expert's opinion, that's simply...
Isn't the expert opinion essentially that it's fraud? Because you're concealing documents, there's more income here than they state?
No, because...
Isn't that different than making an valuation?
Sure.
And then can't the court determine that there's misconduct and fraud and therefore we are going to impute some number that we think is appropriate?
The expert cannot, no. The
court can't, though.
The trial court can, but the expert cannot, because the expert can't prove what documents were withheld. And I would point the court, it's page 9 of the appellant's amended brief, the second full paragraph. Mr. Bober admits that he was turned over the QuickBook reports, supporting files, general ledgers, journal entries, balance sheets, profit loss statements, corporate and personal bank account statements, the Chase and American Express credit card statements, all of which is what Mr. Muka claimed, this is everything. This isn't like profit and losses were withheld or financial statements were withheld. This is, and for the record, Your Honor, to answer the other half of your question, the expert didn't say he's concealing income. The expert didn't say he's hiding anything. The expert said his books are muddy, so I can't tell, but if I take all of his income, this is what it is.
Was there any testimony in this case from anybody that appeared that in this business they were taking cash payments and not reporting them into the bank account?
No, Your Honor. There were cash payments listed in the QuickBooks, and the issue was that neither Mr. Bober nor the appellant could identify them.
And when we talked about what Mr. Bober ended up doing, say, okay, I can see this is the income, and I can see there are some things I'm going to say are business deduction, and he would make that determination.
Correct.
Was there some cross-examination asking him, why did you include X, Y, and Z into these things?
There was, Your Honor, and that's addressed, it was page 23 of the brief, and sorry, let me turn back for the date of the testimony. On September 8th, there was cross-examination on that specific issue. Mr. Bober was asked how he determined which deposits and expenses were selected arbitrarily, and he couldn't identify what those expenses were.
And after the trial court hears that testimony, that cross-examination, will the trial court generally be free to say, I find this to be credible, there's been cross-examination, all these things have been done, and I think for this 1 year, this 130,000, whatever it was, is credible for what his income is under the circumstances?
I think if it had been the appellant, sure. But it's not the appellant. This is a third-party expert who was hired to do an evaluation, and it's a different standard.
Was an objection made below it to him testifying in this capacity as an expert?
There was an objection to his conclusion. I don't know if there was an objection to his qualification specifically. Mr. Bober is a well-established expert who testifies in divorce cases, so it's not like he has never done
So
this.
when it got to that point that he wanted to make a conclusion, there was an objection at that point? So
Correct. Correct. The objection to the conclusion was, under Evidence Rule 702, you have to have some kind of scientific methodology and to a reasonable degree of certainty, and Mr. Bober couldn't reach that. Admittedly, he couldn't conclude that.
Counsel, I have a question.
Sure.
In regard to the business itself, okay, was there evaluation of the business?
There was not, Your Honor. The trial court awarded the business to the appellant, and in an offset awarded 100% of the appellant's interest in the marital residence sale proceeds to the appellee. But it didn't do it specifically as an offset for the business. It did it as a financial misconduct sanction.
So
That's
that would
part of the
all
issue.
theoretically roll into the offset for the, you keep the
I don't
account. Is it the order to say, A, I'm saying this is for financial misconduct, B, I'm saying this is for the value of the business, you get this?
It does not. It doesn't say it's for the value of the business.
And I didn't see that myself in the
No.
order, so you were saying that surprised me to hear that was the case.
Correct.
So I guess my question, a follow-up question is, don't we need evaluation of the business?
I think the trial court should have valued it, yes.
But what if the trial court can't value it because there's concealment or fraud by the other party? I mean, if you don't produce documents, you don't participate, and there's no carrot, there's no stick on that,
Mhm.
and then there's not enough evidence to make a real valuation, where does that leave the court? Don't they have the discretion to decide that the numbers don't add up and that there's things not given and award things accordingly?
I believe the appropriate relief, Your Honor, would have been for the trial court to appoint a third-party neutral expert
But wouldn't they potentially still be missing documents or not have enough information or not be able to gauge what cash is involved?
So that, I think that's the supposition of Mr. Bober, and I disagree with that supposition, is that documents were withheld. Again, no one at the trial court could identify any specific document that was allegedly withheld. It wasn't any, I'm sorry, Your Honor.
No, answer her question. I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry.
It wasn't any corporate records, there was no bank statements, nothing anyone could identify was withheld. The only thing that Mr. Bober could say is that if this business had been run maybe more responsibly or professionally, there would be different documents, but the appellant testified, I gave everything I had to Mr. Bober. And on that note, Your Honor, for carrot and stick, the appellee never attempted to conduct a management interview. They never attempted or requested to conduct any type of issue on what documents were missing. Instead, if you review the record, there were several motions to compels, there were several notices of disclosures by the appellant, and then the appellant testified at trial that I have turned over everything I can, and under Watkins is the case that's cited in the brief, the appellant's not under any obligation to turn over what is not either in his possession, control, or custody. If the documents don't exist, then that would be the appropriate response in discovery.
I'm sorry, Judge Carr,
I just wanted to try to figure out this business valuation. I'm sorry, I'm hung up on it. So we have case law that says that the court has to, place a value on every asset.
Yes, I agree. I'm not arguing with
So
you.
would
I
that
think
be a
that's correct.
final appealable order issue, that it's not final?
I think it is final in that it allocated the business to the appellant. So it doesn't make it non-final appealable. I think that would make it reversible, but I don't think that makes it non-final appealable.
So if the court has to make a valuation, but information is missing, would it be an abuse of discretion if she just considered all the income of the business without any deductions?
Yes, Your Honor.
So how would a court ever come, if there's missing documents and there's potential, numbers not ending up and potential fraud and somebody not participating in litigation, how would a judge ever come to evaluation? I mean, what wouldn't be an abuse of discretion?
The starting point obviously would be taxes, because you have to take the gross receipts and subtract out necessary and ordinary business expenses.
Presuming there's no fraud in the taxes.
Presuming, on a normal situation. Under this case, again, the trial court didn't find fraud in any taxes, it just found it to not be credible. I know I'm running out of time, Your Honor, so if there's any other questions on the business, I'll address them.
A couple questions
Sure.
on the business. Was Mr. Bobar hired to determine just the income for the parties, or was he hired to evaluate the business to give a business value?
I believe he was evaluated for the income analysis, Your Honor. That's what the trial court focused on.
You're not appealing the issue of the value of the business in any of your arguments?
There's no specific assignment of error, Your Honor. We did appeal the entirety of the division of property, in that the trial court allocated sanctions and all of the sale proceeds to the appellee. We're contesting all of that in a group. The main issue that starts there is Mr. Bober's valuation and the findings of misconduct that justify that division of property. And if the trial court if it was remanded, the trial court, I believe, should conduct a business valuation.
So you're saying, and I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, Judge Stevenson, but so you're saying that actually nobody even presented any evidence as to the valuation of the business?
The appellant did, Your Honor, and that the business is himself, and that it would be zero. There is no good faith, there's no goodwill. Without him, it's just him in a truck, it fails, there's nothing left.
Thank you.
I have approximately 30 seconds left, Your Honors. I will be very quick on the contempt issue. The trial court did hold the appellant in contempt on issues, two approximately. One had to do with surveillance cameras in the marital residence. That is reversible error on its face. That's not an abuse of discretion. There was no order in the divorce case that could not happen. Anything about surveillance cameras, that was issued in another matter. And the contempt finding against the appellant for the payment of the mortgage according to temporary orders is not actually pursuant to the temporary order. The appellant wasn't ordered to pay the $1,500 a month or pay the mortgage. That was simply a contempt finding. And the appellee did admit to violating that mutual restraining order by selling the truck. And we contend that by doing so, that's a contempt.
So mutual restraining orders don't mean surveilling, is that what you're saying?
There was no, Your
Because
Honor.
it
There
doesn't
was
say specifically don't surveil your spouse in her private home.
no, Your Honor, because it was a marital residence. That mutual restraining order didn't have a provision for that. That was actually issued in an unrelated domestic violence case. I know I'm out of time, so I appreciate the court's patience. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for your presentation. The court will take the matter under advisement and issue a ruling in due course. Also, the clerk of courts will mail you a copy on the day it's released. The opinions are also located on the Ohio Supreme Court website. We're now adjourned.